The story begins with several students inside a car. Each of them had chosen their girlfriends, enjoying the night together without any clue of what was about to happen. The night was silent, but soon, an eerie disturbance started creeping into the surroundings. At first, the students didn't notice. Suddenly, far in the distance, winds began swirling, slowly forming into a storm, and within moments, a huge tornado emerged. At first, its size seemed manageable, but something unknown caused it to grow into a monstrous force, destroying every house in its path. One student inside the car noticed the destruction and alerted his friends, urging them to escape. They tried speeding away, but the tornado was already too close. Its intensity was so overwhelming that it lifted their car into the air, spinning it violently. The students, who had been carefree just minutes earlier, were now tossed away into the unknown. No one could explain how this tornado grew so massive so quickly. The storm raged through the city the entire night, leaving devastation behind. By the next morning, news channels and crowds had gathered to witness the aftermath of the unprecedented disaster. From above, it was clear that more than half the homes were destroyed, and the students caught in the storm had vanished without a trace. At this point, we are introduced to Pete, a manager of a news channel company that specialized in recording different incidents and natural disasters for social media, which earned them significant revenue. Lately, however, whenever they arrived at a disaster site, everything had already ended. Determined, Pete arrived at the scene with his assistant, Allison, asking her to gather every detail. She explained that the last tornado had winds stronger than any recorded, even lifting objects hundreds of meters into the air, possibly the biggest tornado ever. Pete wanted his company to be the first to record future tornadoes, which could bring them huge profits. Allison immediately set up the equipment to begin work. Meanwhile, we meet Donnie, a boy obsessed with filming videos. His father, Gary, the strict school principal, wanted Donnie to focus on studies like his elder brother Ben, who excelled academically. But Donnie's passion lay elsewhere. Outside, in a garden, a group of people were recording random videos, doing dangerous stunts for views, unaware that death could be the price. At one point, they even destroyed a swimming pool with an off-road car, until the furious property owner chased them away. They left, not realizing that the real adventure they sought was coming soon, an enormous storm that no one would survive. Back with Pete, he revealed his specially designed storm-proof vehicle, equipped with advanced technology. He explained its shields were fully bulletproof, immune to any piercing damage, and its weight was designed so no tornado could lift it. The car even had anchoring weapons that locked it into the ground, making it impossible to move once deployed. Inside the advanced car, multiple cameras were installed to capture everything, and Pete was proudly showing it off. Meanwhile, at school, Donnie and Ben were tasked with recording the graduation ceremony, Donnie handling photography and videography, while Ben was sent by a teacher to assist a woman named Kaylin with her project. This left Donnie fully in charge of the cameras, and he carefully set everything up, conducting interviews as part of the filming. His father, Gary, the school principal, watched him work and couldn't understand what future his son might have if he kept pursuing this hobby instead of academics. Still, Donnie was passionate about photography and videography, and he managed to film the entire ceremony beautifully. Elsewhere, Allison was sitting in her research van talking to her mother, feeling guilty that her work had kept her from attending her daughter's birthday. Suddenly, the weather shifted. The air grew damp as if rain was coming, but instead, hailstones began falling, just as Allison had predicted, signaling a massive tornado. With this confirmation, Pete readied his entire team to capture the storm. Dark clouds gathered, and soon a terrifying funnel formed, touching the ground and activating at full speed. At first, it seemed weak, unable even to uproot trees, so people assumed it would pass quickly. Back at the school, rain had started falling during the graduation, and soon the storm's effects reached the students, forcing them to move indoors for safety. Meanwhile, thrill-seekers were recklessly filming themselves in front of the tornado, chasing viral content without realizing the deadly risk. Pete, determined to capture history, deployed his car's advanced technologies, anchoring it into the ground with weapons designed to resist even the deadliest storms. For him, survival and profit went hand in hand. If they didn't record breaking news, the channel wouldn't survive. As the tornado approached, the car shook violently, but Pete trusted his design. Just when disaster seemed certain, the tornado suddenly changed direction, veering away. Shocked, Pete began to suspect an extraterrestrial force might be controlling it. For now, his team was safe, but the tornado was moving straight toward the school where all the children were gathered. Fear spread as winds intensified, rattling the building. The principal ordered everyone to sit low on the floor, but the storm was already ripping trees, flipping vans, and even tearing off the school's rooftop. Students screamed as some were nearly pulled into the winds, and Donnie, still clutching his camera, risked his life to record it. A massive tree crashed into the school, barely missing him before his father dragged him inside. With the tornado right overhead, the principal urged everyone to grab onto something sturdy. The survival of the children seemed uncertain. In such moments, experts advise that if you are trapped inside a building during a tornado, always move to the lowest level possible, such as a basement or storage room, because staying low gives you the best chance to survive. Usually, during massive tornadoes and storms, the upper parts of buildings take the most damage, while the lower base often remains intact, making it the safest place to hide. One should never try to hide in large open areas inside a building or shelter. Instead, experts advise taking cover in bathrooms, kitchens, or even small cabinets, because larger spaces are more likely to collapse, bringing dangerous debris down from the roof. But what if you're trapped outdoors with no shelter? The first rule is never to stay inside a car, because a tornado can easily lift and hurl vehicles, often leading to severe injuries or even death. The safest option is to move to an open field with no trees or obstacles, lie face down on the ground, and keep as much distance as possible from the tornado. By following these survival tips from experts, people can increase their chances of surviving. Meanwhile, the storm at the school kept intensifying. Many students were already injured, and some had tragically lost their lives. Thankfully, the tornado eventually calmed, but not before the school building was completely destroyed. Teachers and staff worked frantically to rescue the children, while ambulances rushed in for the wounded. Gary, the principal, was terrified for his other son, Ben, who was nowhere in sight. He called Ben, who was busy helping his friend Kalen with a project in another shelter, completely unaware of the approaching danger. Gary warned him of the tornado, but Ben thought his father was exaggerating just to bring him home, and he declined the call. Gary, helpless and worried, stepped outside only to see utter devastation, destroyed school buses, uprooted trees, and chaos everywhere. Meanwhile, in the chamber, Ben and Kalen heard the roaring sound of the massive tornado as it bore down on them. The storm began tearing apart the shelter, sending debris crashing everywhere. They were nearly crushed but managed to leap into a basement at the last second, saving their lives, though both were badly injured. The tornado eventually passed, but the destruction left behind would take years to recover from. Pete's team also stepped out of their fortified car to help survivors. Amid the chaos, Allison discovered shocking news. While the tornado here had subsided, another storm of even greater intensity was forming near a nearby town. The exact strength couldn't be measured, but it was expected to be worse than the last one. Pete insisted they cover it for the news channel, despite the risks, because without capturing such events, their company would never profit. Allison and the rest of the crew prepared to head toward that town, unaware that it was the very town where Donnie and his family lived. Meanwhile, inside the damaged bunker, Ben and Kalen were alive but trapped, with Kalen badly injured and Ben tending to her. Gary, desperate to find his son, searched the wreckage, but what he saw was heartbreaking: neighbors' homes destroyed, people injured, and many needing urgent hospital care. He even rushed to save an elderly man trapped inside his car, but the seatbelt was jammed. Just in time, Donnie handed him a knife to cut it loose. Gary looked closely at his son, wondering why he was carrying a knife, but for now, he focused on rescuing the old man and continued helping as many people as he could. The entire town's homes were already destroyed by the storm. Gary then placed his son Donnie in the car and set out to find his other son, Ben, but he couldn't shake the thought of why Donnie had a knife. Was he up to something wrong? Meanwhile, Pete, Allison, and their crew were urging people to evacuate because they suspected the tornado would return. Soon, they came across a group of reckless thrill-seekers filming videos as if nothing mattered. Allison warned them to leave instead of recording, but they were obsessed with capturing the tornado up close for social media, willing to risk their lives just for content, just like Pete. While Allison argued with them, the sky suddenly turned pitch black, and another tornado formed, even larger and stronger than the last. As it touched down, it ripped apart homes and buildings in seconds. Allison had never seen such a monstrous tornado in her life, and if it continued for even a little longer, it could wipe out the entire city. People and cars were hurled into the air like toys. Gary's car went out of control with Donnie inside and eventually crashed as the tornado moved deeper into the city. Gary managed to pull Donnie out and watched him run into a nearby restaurant, but just as Gary tried to follow, a car smashed in front of him, blocking the way. With no escape and the massive tornado bearing down, Gary suddenly noticed Allison struggling. She had been sucked into the air while trying to enter Pete's advanced storm car. Gary rushed to her aid, grabbed her, and dragged her inside just in time. All around them, people were taking shelter, and soon the tornado passed, leaving behind devastation worse than before. No one knew how many more storms were coming, but now it was clear that everyone needed to be prepared for anything. Allison thanked Gary for saving her life, but Gary begged her for help, explaining that his other son was trapped in a nearby abandoned factory. Donnie insisted on going too, and Allison quickly contacted Pete, suggesting they head there since the tornado seemed to be moving in that very direction. She argued they could capture powerful footage there. After some thought, Pete agreed and prepared to take everyone in the advanced storm vehicle. Inside, Pete noticed Donnie holding a small camera and told him to keep filming everything, since his own cameraman had been killed. In return, Pete promised to pay Donnie well. Donnie was thrilled. Filming was exactly what he loved, so he eagerly started recording from the car's mirrors. Meanwhile, inside the basement of the abandoned factory, Ben and Kaylin were in terrible condition and knew they had to escape. As Ben tried to climb up, water began flooding inside. The storm had worsened, heavy rain poured down, and lightning struck violently across the sky. Surviving such brutal conditions seemed impossible. But those reckless storm chasers outside were too blinded by their obsession to care. They grab their cameras and head closer to the tornado as if their lives don't even matter. All they care about is capturing dramatic footage that will make them famous. As Pete and his crew drive forward, a massive tornado looms directly ahead. Pete is confident his specially designed high-tech vehicle can withstand it, but the situation escalates when 3 more tornadoes form from the sides, surrounding them almost completely. If all of these collide, survival will be impossible. Still, they push forward, but the vehicle carrying Jerry, Allison, and another man gets caught and topples over since it was just a regular car, unlike Pete's. Struggling to escape, Jerry and Allison fight their way out, but then a tornado tears into a gas station, causing cars to crash and trigger a massive chain reaction explosion. The fire spreads rapidly from the gasoline, and shockingly, another tornado passes right through the flames, absorbing it. Now it has become a fire tornado, far more destructive than before. Anything caught inside would instantly burn to death. No one had ever seen anything like this in their lives. Pete and his team rush to save Jerry and Allison, deciding to head for safer ground, while elsewhere some reckless thrill-seekers stand still with their cameras, waiting for a tornado to approach. One finally reaches them, and instead of running, they stay frozen. The tornado's intensity flings them violently away, killing them instantly. Meanwhile, one of Pete's cameramen tries to capture the fire tornado, but the powerful winds pull him in. A teammate desperately tries to hold on, but the moment he's sucked inside, his body ignites, and he dies in agony. Horrified, the others realize there's nothing they can do and retreat into a nearby church, hoping it will be safe until the storms calm down. The team is heartbroken by the cameraman's death, but Pete insists they must keep filming no matter what, arguing that the footage has to be perfect if they want to go viral. Allison, furious at his selfishness, confronts him, but another crew member reminds her that if they don't capture it, some other news channel will. Disillusioned, Allison decides not to stand by Pete anymore. Instead, she joins Gary, who is determined to save his son Ben. Together they rush off. Ben and Caitlin, however, are trapped as water rises dangerously around them. If no one comes soon, they'll drown. Ben manages to get a weak signal and sends a desperate rescue message to his father. Just then, Gary receives it and realizes his son is still alive. Overcome with urgency, he speeds toward the location with Allison by his side. By now, the massive tornado has vanished, but everyone knows it will return. When Gary, Allison, and the others reach the factory where Ben and Caitlin are trapped, they find almost everything in ruins. The factory was in ruins, with debris scattered everywhere. But Gary knew his son had to be inside the underground bunker. He shouted his name while clearing away whatever he could. Soon, he spotted his son but couldn't reach him because heavy iron rods had collapsed over the entrance, far too heavy for anyone to move. Caitlin and Ben were nearly underwater, about to drown. Just in time, one of their teammates rammed a van repeatedly into the rods, loosening them enough for Gary to pull people out. He rescued Caitlin first, then tried to get Ben, but a smaller iron rod had pinned Ben's leg, trapping him below. Without hesitation, Gary dove into the rising water. Ben's leg was also tangled in a rope, so Gary grabbed a knife his other son had given him and cut it free. He pulled Ben up as fast as possible, but by then Ben had swallowed too much water and wasn't breathing. Gary immediately began CPR, desperate to revive him. In situations like this, if you don't know proper CPR, remember, your hand placement must be at the very center of the chest, slightly lower, pushing down firmly with both hands about 100 to 120 times per minute. After 30 compressions, give 2 rescue breaths to help expel water from the lungs and restart breathing. If the person vomits, roll them to the side, clear their airway, and continue CPR until they respond. Gary followed this exact technique and managed to save his son's life. But the danger wasn't over. The storm could return at any moment. They needed to find shelter. Pete had also arrived and finally captured the storm footage he wanted. As everyone drove away in their vehicles, they encountered something shocking: two massive tornadoes directly ahead, far larger than anything they had seen before. The destruction they caused was unimaginable. Things became even worse when the two tornadoes collided, merging into a single monster twister. Allison estimated its speed to be over 300 kilometers per hour, making it the fastest and largest tornado ever recorded. Her tracking device revealed its path was heading straight toward the school, where hundreds of students and teachers were still inside, unaware of the danger. Gary knew they had to be evacuated immediately. Without wasting time, he rushed to the school. The storm grew so violent that it lifted and destroyed airplanes, leaving nothing safe on the ground. At the school, Gary pleaded with the vice principal to evacuate, but he refused at first. After Allison explained the severity, he finally agreed. Quickly, all the students were loaded onto school buses, which sped off in the opposite direction of the tornado. But none of them realized how fast the twister was closing in on them. They couldn't move forward that way because the entire school bus could easily get lifted into the air. So Allison and the others told the students to get off and take another route, searching for a safer place. All around them was nothing but destruction, and one wrong step could cost their lives. Suddenly, Ben and Donnie reached a spot where they often used to shoot videos. There was a newly built small tunnel, and they decided this was the best place to hide. The path behind them was blocked by iron rods, so they entered through a hole in front of them. One by one, everyone crawled into the tunnel to escape the massive tornado overhead, which was lifting and hurling everything with its sheer intensity. Pete, however, was worried about his car, the one he had spent so much money building. He couldn't stand to let it be destroyed. Despite everyone's warnings, he ran outside, got into his car, and experienced the storm up close. That had always been his dream, to see the world's biggest tornado face to face. The problem was the twister's wind speed had now surpassed unimaginable levels, strong enough to destroy anything. Inside the tunnel, even the people hiding were struggling to hold on as the storm sucked at everything. Luckily, Pete positioned his car in a way that blocked the tunnel entrance, protecting everyone inside, though it put his own life at risk. He tied a rope from the car to the tunnel to avoid being blown away, but even with advanced technology, his car started lifting into the air. The others couldn't do anything except hold tight inside. Outside, trucks and airplanes were tossed around like straw. Pete was soon seen right in the middle of the storm, rising higher and higher until he could clearly see the sky. But then suddenly, his car began plummeting from that height. Pete knew he wouldn't survive, and in the end, he died. Moments later, the storm calmed. The monstrous tornado was finally gone, and those inside the tunnel were safe. News channels quickly reported that this was the largest tornado ever captured on camera, a storm so destructive it leveled the entire city. But now the sky was clear. All the students were rescued properly, and the injured were taken to hospitals. Using the footage, Allison carried forward Pete's research. But in the final twist, we learned that the two crazy storm chasers actually survived. They were found dangling from a tree, laughing as if it was all just a game. They uploaded their footage and became famous. And that's where our story ends.